Laurie Huston's News for the Heart is dedicated to helping you give a voice to your own soul. Our hearts have the power to free us from pain and the struggles that keep us from awakening to our true essence. Join Laurie now as we delve into our heart and soul to find the path that will open us to the possibilities and lead us to the life we love to live.
And good afternoon. This is News for the Heart, and today, well, it's the last day of the month. It's also the last Tuesday of the month. So I have my awesome co-host, Tom Campbell, with me. We're going to take a little hiatus. We're in the middle of a heat wave here in Toronto, which so crazy because last month, I'm pretty sure we were still wearing winter coats and we had no leaves on the trees. Within days, we got leaves on the trees, and now we're in our first heat wave. And Tom said, "What's a heat wave in Toronto?" It's like, well, it's 38 degrees, which means it's 102 to 105. Yeah. So it's hot, which is a little bit difficult, which is why we're going to take a little break and come back in the fall. But because our show last month was very well received on happiness, I thought, since our purpose is to grow up, and that's certainly what we like to talk about here on News for the Heart, and with Tom specifically, I thought we would talk about how it's also supposed to be, we have a smaller purpose, which is to enjoy ourselves and to have fun. And I think, sure, not all growth is fun, but I thought we would talk about what we can do to make growth more fun. Now, Tom's Park is definitely a place where we can go and enjoy ourselves and, take up some of the excellent opportunities that are within the park to use our imagination and to play. Mm-hmm. We also need to learn how to enjoy ourselves more and play more. Yes, it's not the purpose. It's not about being happy. It's not about, always being in a state of joy. But we're here to live. And I think, we need to do it in a way that's empowering and joyful and playful. And I think that's one of the ones we kind of miss when we're on this journey. We want to make it so serious and so, no, can't do that. We have to be right. We have to. So yes, even those of us on a spiritual journey, we still want that. Well, we have to be right. So let's talk about how we can make our journey of growth a little bit more fun.
Okay, that would be a fun thing to talk about.
There you go.
Well, happiness is not something that you kind of go after. It's not a goal that you work for. It's a byproduct of a life well lived. It's a byproduct of you growing up. If you get rid of your fear, and then you get rid, of course, your ego and your beliefs go away for the most part when you get rid of your fear, then you're happy. Everything seems to work fine. Everything's good. Even the things that before were really hard and unpleasant, they aren't so hard and unpleasant anymore. You can accept them as learning opportunities, a good thing, not, a terrible thing. So finding joy and finding happiness and finding satisfaction and just enjoying, the sunshine and enjoying the rain too, just enjoying being and being a part of life, a part of other people's lives, just a part of the environment, part of nature, just enjoying all of that just because it is. Not because what I get out of it, but just because it's there and I'm a part of it and it's good. That is a byproduct of letting go of your fear. So if you let go of your fear, then your life will be mostly happiness and joy. And even when that really tough thing comes along, and really tough things can be horrible. A child dies, or, a spouse dies, or you get fired and you can't find another job and you can't pay your mortgage. There are things in life that sometimes are tough, and everybody has to deal with those. But if you don't have the fear, then those things are just things that you deal with the best you can, and you go wherever life takes you, and that's that. And because you have that positive attitude, you're more likely to get that next job opportunity that then is twice as good as the old one that you had, because you have a positive attitude. So, the way to find happiness and joy and peace is to get rid of your fear. But in the meantime, we need to spend more time thinking about what's positive in our life and less time thinking about what's negative in our life. So at any one time, it's good to stop and just feel gratitude for where you are. Gratitude for just whatever it is in your life that's working. You're not hungry. You're not cold. You're not wet. You are okay, and that's good. There's a lot of people who aren't okay from day to day, but most of us are, and that's those kinds of things are not things we worry about anymore. Those bottom of Maslow's hierarchy, the things that are essential, the food, the shelter, those things we take for granted. And even being able to just walk around on a nice day, go take a walk in a park, just go jogging, feeling fit, exercise. So you feel fit, you feel like going out and exercising and walking or doing things like that. That should be able to make you happy, and joyful. Here you are. And think of your gratitude of all the things that work well in your life. Okay, your life isn't perfect. Right. It's probably never going to be perfect. You're going to always have to work and always have to put in effort and energy trying to make the best and most positive thing you can out of whatever life deals you. So sometimes that's harder, sometimes that's easier, but it can all be fun if you see these challenges as learning opportunities, not like, it's so unfair that I get treated this way, self-pity. Now that makes you miserable. But if it's like, wow, okay, I just lost my job, didn't expect that. I wonder where that's going to go. I wonder how that's going to work out. Well, I better start working on my resume and start sending it out to a lot of places and talking to my friends to see if they know of any open positions where they work. And, so you make a plan and you start working on it, and things generally work out if you're positive. They mostly work out if you're positive. Things just happen, and they typically not only work out, but they work out to a better situation than what you had before, if you're positive. That's typical. And even if it doesn't, well, you do what you have to do. If you have to, if you have 2 cars and you have to sell one, if you, have to go get something to eat down at the rescue mission, if you're that poor, well, that's what you do. You do what you have to do. And maybe you need to stay with friends for a month or 2. But there's usually ways to get by. And if we interpret all of that as awful, how awful, I'm so miserable, I have to stay with friends, and I don't want to be there, and they don't want me to be there, and everybody's miserable. Well, that's because everybody's full of fear. If everybody wasn't full of fear, everybody would actually be having fun, doing something different, out of the rut, into new things, new adventures, new possibilities. What's going to happen out of these new possibilities now? You look at life that way. So you have a relationship and it blows up or explodes, and instead of feeling sad and miserable about it, you think, okay, now what's going to happen? Maybe something really great's going to come along here with this new opportunity. You just be positive and connect with people and stay, don't go hide in your basement and cry all the time, because then nothing positive is going to happen. It's all going to be unpleasant for you. But if you have that positive attitude, you can still walk outside on a sunny day, or in your case, maybe a cloudy day would be better since it's 100 degrees outside.
Well, it's more going for a walk along the lake, which is what I did this morning, which there's a bit of breeze and it's lovely. It just once you get back here, it's like, it's a little sunny.
Yeah. Well, you get up early and enjoy those early morning times, and take a nap in the afternoon, when it gets too hot. But in any case, it's a matter of adapting, being flexible, being open, and being positive about it all. And if you're like that, then, and if you particularly spend some time, and it would be good to spend some time every day wallowing in gratitude rather than wallowing in self-pity, about all the terrible things that happens to you and why you never get ahead and why, all your luck's bad luck. If you wallow in gratitude, you think, well, it's not so bad. Basically, I've got all my basics met. Now it's about the icing, and just be positive about it. And maybe you're lonely or something. Well, don't stay inside and hide because you don't feel good. Get out there. Take that walk around the lake. Join some organization that does things that you're interested in. There's all kinds of things you can do. Volunteer. Join some kind of group. Go volunteer. Go hold preemies down at the hospital. Help adult education for those people that never graduated from high school, that can't read and write. That sort of thing. And adult education, there's usually things like that going on in every town, in every city. Help people who come to this country with a foreign language to speak English. There's lots of places to volunteer where you will meet people. You'll meet those people, you'll meet other volunteers, and if you're pleasant and sociable, then your life will be pleasant and sociable again. So you're not lonely anymore. You see, whereas if you feel sorry for yourself and kind of hide and avoid people because you feel so miserable, then you just do all the exact wrong things. And that makes you, it kind of cements in that negative space that you're in. So when you are negative, you create a negative environment for yourself to live in. When you're positive, you create a positive environment for yourself to live in. When you're real negative and you force yourself to be social, well, the vibe you send out to everybody in this social space is not a very attractive vibe, Whereas if you're happy and smile and enjoying yourself, then that is an attractive vibe that you send out. And people are attracted to that happy, fun person. But if you sit around feeling like you're not fun and nobody will like you and it's going to be a horrible evening anyway, out with other people, and if you come with a negative attitude, then you'll probably get a negative result. So, joy should be in almost everything we do. Now, one thing my father always said to me, I probably heard it at least 100 times, and that is, if you're going to do something, then do it well. And I think what he said, if it's worth doing right. And that should apply to everything, even washing the dishes and picking up paper off the sidewalk to put it in a trash can. Things that are positive, things that need doing. So instead of washing dishes and grumbling about I have to do the damn dishes every night, wash the dishes and say, feel like, well, I'm part of the solution here. People would prefer clean dishes when they have their food, so I'll wash them. And if you're worried about other people are getting more than you're getting, see, you have to wash them all the time and they don't. Well, that's just your ego. That's just your fear of poor me. I'm abused, I don't get the breaks that other people get. And then you get annoyed. You may still wash the dishes, but you're resentful now. You wash them and you're resentful because this ego and this fear makes you resentful. And then you don't get along with the people in your household because you resent them, because you're always washing the dishes. You see, it just changes an attitude. It's all you do. Nothing's different. You just change that attitude the other way around and say, oh, yeah, dishes. I'm not only going to wash them, but I'm going to wash them really, really well. And I'm going to dry them and put them away. And, I'll even get them cleaner than they were before we started using them. Those other little spots that are kind of stains that are on them, I'm going to get them off too. And take joy in the final product, which is all the dishes are clean. That's a good thing. Feel good about it. You see, every little thing we do can be a happy thing if we have the right attitude. If our attitude is positive, and if our attitude is negative, it'll be an unhappy thing. It'll make us miserable, and we'll feel bad about it. We'll feel bad about ourselves. Life's not fair. We'll get into that negative viewpoint. So it's just your attitude. That's all you have to change. You don't have to change the world, or you don't have to change other people. You don't have to change anything but your own attitude, and it'll make life going from kind of a slog that you have to get through, every day. Oh my God, what's going to happen today? Kind of a unhappy slog through life, and you see what's going on out in the world, and it depresses you, and you're unhappy about life and unhappy about everything. Well, you're just a sad sack going through life miserable. And it's just an attitude. You can turn that attitude around, and suddenly, it's a new day, and new things will happen today. What can I do that's fun? I'll get up early while it's still cool and take a walk around the lake. That would be nice. And when I do that, and if I do it every morning, there's a whole bunch of people that do that too. And you'll meet some of them, and some of them will be really nice people. And, it'll start relationships and all sorts of things. Whereas if you sit around and complain, you won't meet anybody except your own unhappiness, which will make it worse. So you just get out and do things and connect with people. Connecting with people is important. Being a reclusive person staying at home, being a hermit, is generally not on the path to happiness. Right. Good relationship is on the path to happiness. In order to have good relationship, you need to be positive, and you have to go out and do things. Get engaged with life. Volunteer. Walk around the lake in the morning, but do it around the same time, because then you'll meet the same people, and then you'll be able to, you become friends with some of them. It's like that. Or if you volunteer at the library, sorting books and putting them back on the shelves. There's all sorts of things to do. You'll meet people there. There'll be people who frequent that library, every week, and you'll get to know them, and they'll get to know you, and you'll make friends, plus all the other people who work there. So you just engage life, go out and do things that are valuable for people. Volunteering is always eagerly accepted. People always need volunteers for hundreds of different things, and you can get involved with that, and you'll meet all sorts of other people, and you'll meet nice people, because these are people who care enough to volunteer. So you already are going to be meeting, good people. You walk around the lake early in the morning, you're going to meet those people who are energetic enough to get up out of bed and go walk around the lake early in the morning. So these are going to be people who are kind of bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and out having fun. Well, these are just exactly the kind of people you want to meet. You stay home because grumble, nothing's fun, and I'm not having any fun, and I'll sit here and watch TV or something. Then you don't meet people. And places where you hang out, if you do most of your hanging out complaining, well, what you'll do is you will attract other complainers. And you and other complainers will sit around and trade negative stories with each other. And these aren't the kind of people that you want to meet, you see. But if you're smiley and positive and happy, you'll attract, positive and happy people.
I'm going to just say that that's exactly what I did last summer. When we took a break, I had already started walking every day, but that was exactly what I did. It was going the same time. I met so many people on the boardwalk. I met love. It was amazing. Just because I was much more open, because things had been so complicated with COVID and how everybody was interacting and not interacting, and still being told stay at home. We had the longest stay at home for, I think, anywhere. But I just said, but we were allowed to go out to exercise, so I went out, and it changed everything. So it really, you're saying exactly,
it works.
It works. It really does.
It works. Yeah, get involved with people, whatever you do. And you'd be amazed how many groups need volunteers.
Right.
But there's lots of things, that you can get into that are just volunteers, that you'll meet people, and you'll meet other people who contribute by volunteering. Right. So already you're going to be meeting a higher quality, nicer bunch of people. Right. Don't make your social activity going to a bar, and complaining, right? You're going to meet people who you probably would do better if you didn't meet them. Do things that are productive, are helpful, are giving
Try
back.
not to take the whole weather thing, because everybody in Canada, that's all we talk about. We have the cold winters, we have the hottest summers. It's like you get so caught up in, and that's one thing everybody wants to talk about. It's like we're complaining in the winter, and it's like, it's going to happen in a month, right? It's like, oh no, everybody's starting to complain today. It's like, yep.
Yeah. Well, a lot of that complaining is that people have a propensity to stay in the negative space. What's wrong? They have a propensity to, they can look at everything going on in front of them, and they'll focus on all the things that they don't like. They'll just focus on the stuff that's wrong or that bothers them or that upsets them, and they'll just focus on that. That's why I suggest this take some time for gratitude, because mostly if you don't take that time for gratitude, you won't do it. We don't think about the things that are positive in our life. We just dwell on the negative things all the time. So if you have a bunch of people who are kind of looking for something to complain about, well, the weather is just one of those things we can almost always complain about, So that's why so many people talk about the weather, is because it gives them something to complain about. And, that's why we like talking about politics so much. It gives us something to complain about. And because we have a tendency to see everything from the negative viewpoint, what's wrong with it? What's wrong with people? What's wrong with our culture? What's wrong with our government? What's wrong with the weather? What's just everything, what's wrong with the city? What's wrong with the garbage collection? What's wrong with, and we find that our conversations are all about what's wrong. It's all about negative stuff. And I think that's what makes weather so popular. Hardly anybody says, wow, this is such a wonderful day. Don't you really like it hot? Remember back 3 months ago when we were freezing and it was, 20 degrees below zero? Remember that? Oh, doesn't this feel great? Yeah. People hardly ever say things like that. What they say is, how uncomfortable am I? How miserable this is. And they all share how miserable they are, and then move on to share it with other people, how miserable they are. And if you spend your time in negative conversation, you will not be a happy person. Your life will not be full of joy. You will not feel satisfied with your life. You'll get, cantankerous, and you'll be easily upset, easily annoyed, easily angered, and you'll start wallowing in self-pity. And that is just the road that is all downhill. That is just the worst place to go. So just think about everybody that's listening, just think about your day. Think about all the things you say. Be aware of what you say. And if it's negative, just don't say anything. If you can't say something that's positive, just keep your mouth shut altogether. Have that rule. I'm going to say something that's positive. Okay, it's 103 degrees in Canada. You can say something like, well, at least it's not 110.
Well, I think it's more reminding us of what it was like 3 months ago, or in our case, a month ago.
But in any case, find something to say. Well, this is kind of an adventure all by itself. I go home, take off all my clothes, and wander around naked, all evening because it's so darn hot. But so it's different. Even though if it's hot and uncomfortable, let that boot you out of your normal way of doing things. Oh, my normal way of doing things is this, and that. Now that's uncomfortable because it's hot. Well, then stop doing that. Go take a cold shower, do something else. Use your creativity about how to find something else to do. And even if you are miserable with the heat, don't complain about it. Accept it. It's part of life, and say, sometimes life is like this. And my life is richer because every day isn't the same. If every day was the same, I'd be bored with it, even if it were the perfect day. I wouldn't even appreciate it. So it's good to have different things. And sometimes things are too hot, and sometimes they're too cold, and sometimes they're too rainy, and sometimes they're too dry. And life's like that, but that's part of the beauty. And it's it makes life interesting, that we have different things that we deal with positively. So if we see that, well, this is going to be one of those adventures. It's been over 110 now for a whole week. Wow. That's really unique. And how you dealt with it and what you did. And, you found a store that was air conditioned. So you spent 5 hours browsing the store, But whatever it is you do, enjoy it. See it as an adventure, as a thing that's happening for you to deal with positively, and deal with it positively. And then all of these things that make us complain are really challenges to find a positive way to deal with it. And if you catch yourself complaining, just be quiet. Just don't join the conversation. If you're around 10 people and they're all complaining, just listen. And you can think, wow, everybody's really in the complaining mode here. I'm not going to contribute to that. Yeah. Maybe you can find something positive to say. Yeah, well, at least it's different. It's not like all the days, and differences are kind of the spice of life, right? And when things happen that are different, even if they're different in a way that is uncomfortable, still, it lets you know you're alive. You have feelings, you have connections, and it makes your life more interesting, that it has ups and downs. You wouldn't want a life that was nothing but a flat line forever. What a drag that would be. You want ups, you want downs, you want things, you want sideways too. Novelty and what's the word? Diversity in experience is part of the beauty of life here, that we run into so many people, and some of them are terribly negative, some of them are very positive, most of them are in between. Some days it's hot, some days it's cold, some days at work are even a lot of fun, and some days are really miserable. But all of that makes up an interesting life, a life that's just all on that straight line. Every day is like every other day is not an interesting life. That would be a good life to start doing different things. Part of the good thing about COVID was it kicked us out of the ruts that we were in. But then a lot of people got in a different rut. They got in a stay-at-home rut rather than go to the office rut, and that wasn't good either. The fact that we got changed, though, was a challenge. We had to think new things, come up with creative solutions to how we were going to get stuff done that, in environments that we weren't used to. And as we look back on it, you won't find that was the horrible part. That was the interesting part, figuring all that stuff out. The horrible part was all the complaining we did before and afterwards. Yeah, all the complaining that people did about, oh no, I got to stay home and I can't get any work done with the kids and da, 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 da. And then it's over and everybody has to go to work and they're complaining, I don't want to go back to work. I want to stay home. It was so much better. Yeah. But just the fact that things change give us opportunities to exercise our good attitude toward life in general. So we're talking about happiness and joy and peace. I think the key thing is, one, get out, interact with people, and do it in such a way that the people you interact with are mostly nice people and good people, which really usually isn't going to the nearest bar. That's generally not where all the really nice and good people congregate. Not that there aren't nice people in bars, I'm sure there are, but that wouldn't be the place that you'd go looking for,
Friends.
For friends, for connections, for meeting people that you'd like to hang out with. Go to do something else. There's lots of things to do. Yeah. Just think, how could I be helpful? What could I do that would help out? And then just ask around, and you will. You call up you probably have a city that keeps track of the charities that are in the city. They probably have a list of them. Because they're tax-free, so they go in a separate category with the city, and just see what it is you might be interested in doing for those organizations. Yeah, lots of things to do. So stay active, stay connected, stay involved and engaged with people. And when you run into negative people who are just complaining and finding fault, then go someplace else, or just be quiet. Listen, you might learn something. It'll be a good example of how not to be. And just watch those complaining people and see how they feel, and you'll see that they're unhappy. You'll see that they have a real negative attitude about their whole life and themselves. They're negative about themselves. And if you just watch and listen, it'll help you. It'll help you as you look at yourself. Am I like that? Do I do that kind of thing? So you can learn a lot, even in situations that are negative. So always be open to that. So that would be my suggestions for how to find happiness and joy. One, just enjoy everything. Enjoy the little things. Enjoy washing those dishes while you're washing them. Don't wash them with a grudge. Have to wash the awful dishes, and it's always me. That makes it miserable. That makes you unhappy. Find the positive thing in it. They need to be washed, and you're going to be a contributor. And if other people aren't contributors and they're negative about life and they're just trying to get out of things, and well, that's their problem. They're not going to have nice lives. They're not going to be happy. They're not going to be, smiles and positive. So if they're going through life shunting responsibility to other people, well, take that responsibility if you can. Do it well, and feel good about it. Don't feel ripped off. Feel good about it. And those other people, they'll have to figure out their own life. If they're making poor choices and sidestepping their responsibility and trying to manipulate other people, they're not going to be happy people. And they'll have to figure that out on their own. But you don't have to be unhappy because they're not happy. Don't let other people, dictate your own attitude. Your attitude shouldn't be a reflection of others. It should be a reflection of who you are inside. That's your attitude. You need to own it, take responsibility for it, and make sure it's positive. So if you get stuck doing something, well, do it well, and do it with a positive attitude. And figure those other people, well, life will deal with them the way it does, people who are negative and who try to manipulate others. It just will be like that. So, and you'll gain power that way, because as you do things, you'll gain stature and you'll gain power in whatever circles you travel in, because you'll be the person that gets things done. You'll be the person who, who actually goes someplace and does things. And you'll be the person that they'll look up to. And pretty soon they may even start taking their own responsibility more seriously just by hanging out with you. You see, people have to come to their own conclusions that they need to change. So if you're constantly struggling with someone, they'll never grow because they're always pushing back from that struggle. But if you just act nice to them and do things for them, they'll think, oh, that's great. I don't have to do it. I got them to do it. Aren't I clever? But after a while, they'll think, oh, aren't I a schmuck? I'm not doing my part. I'm not doing this. Maybe I should grow up a little bit. And that, gives them space where they can decide on their own to grow up. Whereas if you're constantly telling them, you need to grow up, you need to be more responsible, they'll never grow up because that pushes them the opposite way. The way you help people grow is by giving them a safe space in which they can change themselves. If it's just a constant bickering, running argument between you and them, nobody's growing up. You, not them. Everybody's staying, wallowing in the negative. Nobody's changing. But if you just decide, well, I'll do it. I'll do all those things because they need to be done and I'll just do them. Now you give that other person the space in which they can grow up and become more responsible. So it's that self-centeredness that says, but yeah, what about me? I'm doing more than my fair share. And what about me? You see, well, that's all the self-centeredness. So what about you? What about you is be positive. That's what's about you. Be helpful. Do what you can do and let other people grow up as they can, as they, have the space to do it. But my experience is that if you let them come to the conclusion that they are being unfair and irresponsible just because that becomes so obvious that they can't, that they can't not see it, there's a much higher probability they will change themselves for the better than if you consistently pick at them to grow up and be more responsible. Yeah. That almost guarantees that they won't change, at least not around you.
Yeah. You mentioned an important piece about how if everything was perfect or everything was the same, you wouldn't grow. And that's the thing. Even though we may find growth, uncomfortable or challenging, or we're always, even the positive parts, it's still, if we only had everything that was perfect, we'd never grow.
No, there'd be no challenges.
Yeah, exactly.
You see, it would be your environment would be so repetitious that there wouldn't be any challenge. You'd never really stretch out to grow any. Right. The challenges is what gives us opportunities to grow. And unfortunately for most people, we have to, we make wrong decisions and it makes us unhappy, which then we make even worse decisions, which makes us more unhappy. And then we make even worse decisions. And we keep doing that until we get ourselves worked down into a hole to where we are so miserable and unhappy that we change. Yeah. What do they call that? The dark night of the soul, right? You finally work yourself into such a deep pit that there's no way to go but up, but better. And then people start changing because they just can't stand to do the same thing again. And then as they do those changes, suddenly life starts to change too. You see, because now they're not just complaining, they're going to do something, and it starts to get better. And as it gets better, it gets more better. And the more better it gets, the more better it gets. And it goes the other way. And then they look back at that dark night of the soul and they said, oh, that's the best thing that ever happened to me. That turned me around and started me going in a better direction. But you shouldn't have to go to the point of, total misery before you learn. Let's not be that thick-headed, right? It'd be much better to just stop when the pain's just very mild and say, oh, pain, I'm not doing this right. What am I doing wrong? Oh, okay, I'm negative. I see everything that's wrong with the world, and everything that's wrong with all my friends, and everything that's wrong with my family, and everything that's wrong with my job. And I just focus on everything that's wrong. And that's making me unhappy because I live in a wrong space all the time with wrong people, a wrong employer. And that instead of looking at it that way, think it, oh, I got a job, pay the rent, have a little bit left over, can do this, do that. Think of the positive things and do things that are different. Yeah. Just go do something. And, exercise is very useful. That's doing something positive and useful. Go get exercise. But just exercising, in your living room, well, that's better than not exercising at all. But it'd be better if you went someplace and interacted with people, because relationship is where most of our learning is. Most of our growth is done in relationship to other people. It's very hard to grow up in a cave, when you're just all by yourself. There's not a lot of growth going on there because there's no challenges. Well, the challenges are survival, perhaps, but that's a different kind of challenges. It's the relationship challenges that mostly challenge your ego and challenge your fear. So go get connected and engaged and see what happens. And if you can't say something positive, just don't say anything. Listen, watch, see how other people, how they are, what they're doing, see how they function.
And I think one of the ways we grow is when we look at how we're judging those people, saying, oh, they're always negative and blah, 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 and they should grow up.
Yeah.
You're going, wait,
Yeah.
That's what I need to see, because that's me judging and I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, judging other people is usually that negative thing we do. It's a negative thing that we're doing about other people. We're looking at what's wrong with them and we're judging them. It's not that we judge them to be wonderful and we judge them to be happy, because we don't judge those kind of people. They just are. We only judge the things that are negative. So again, that judging is a negative aspect. We hardly ever say, well, that person is always so positive and happy. Isn't that wonderful? The person who's happy and positive, well, we kind of like them, but we would not judge them. We only judge the things we don't like. So, being judgmental is a problem.
Yeah.
Not only, it's a problem for everybody in the sense that the people you judge makes them unhappy, which then probably makes them more judgmental, and they judge you for judging them, and you judge them for judging you for judging them, and that whole thing just spirals down into a bad place. It doesn't produce any positive results. Now, on the other hand,
on the energy too, like you may think, oh, well, I'm not showing that I'm judgmental, but that's not you.
No, that's not the point. We're not talking about being a good actor.
Yeah.
Acting like you're happy, acting like you're kind, acting like you're full of joy. We're not talking about acting here. We're talking about being that way from the inside out, just being that way. Being a good actor is civilizing, but it doesn't help you grow up any. And if you see people and they're doing negative things and you can see they're part of the problem, instead of judging them, feel some compassion for them. That's somebody who isn't happy. That's somebody who doesn't like themselves. Most people, when they're being rude or unpleasant, it's because they feel inadequate. They don't like themselves. They're not happy with who they are. That's the trouble. And you should have some compassion for them. Instead, think, well, we're all trying to grow up here, and we're all on different paths, dealing with different things, and that's just the path they are, dealing with what they're dealing with. And I have compassion for them because they are making themselves miserable, and there's nothing really you can do about it. You can't go up and say, oh, stop making yourself miserable, because that will just make them even more miserable. You just told them that whatever it was they were doing, it wasn't right, and that makes them feel even worse about themselves. So you just have to let it be and say, that's the way they are. It's okay. You don't have to take any of that personally. Even if they aim it at you, you don't have to take it personally. It's about them,
Right.
not about you. So then suddenly this environment full of negative jerks that you have to live with all the time just disappears. And now they're just a bunch of people just like you, trying to get along, doing the best they can. And most of them making poor choices, most of them being negative, you know. And yeah, that's just kind of, that's the way people are. They're just everyday people trying to deal with their everyday life and not doing very well and making a lot of poor choices. So start hanging out with people that make better choices. And with the people that don't make good choices, you can still be around them, but mostly don't say much. Just listen and watch. Don't involve so much with that negativity. Doesn't mean you have to ignore that bunch of people at work. You still have to work with them, and you still need to be polite. You still have to be functional there, but you don't have to join it. You don't have to get in there and give your 2 cents worth of how miserable you are and how, you know, you're being cheated and, you know, that sort of thing. You don't have to add to it. You can watch it and not participate.
Yeah.
So most of our problems, most of our unhappiness, most of our pain is self-created. And it's mostly created by our own attitudes toward things. We interpret this as awful.
Mm-hmm.
And we interpret that as awful because we're fearful and we have ego and we have beliefs. And that's our problem. So if your life is hard, well, sometimes life is hard. But it shouldn't be unhappy and miserable. It's just hard. And you should be doing what you can to deal with that hard place in your life and doing that as positively as you can. You know, instead of blaming other people for it, you say, well, this is my thing to learn through, to work through. And I'll see how positively I can get through this. With that attitude, almost certainly positive things will start happening to you, because that's a positive attitude. So happiness is not so hard to get. You just have to let go of that fear, and there you are. You're happy. And letting go of that fear is hard for people because it's so deep. It's such a part of you. But it can be done if you just keep working on it. Stay focused on, I don't want to be that way. And it'll go away. Because if you really don't want to be that way, you will start doing things and thinking of things in a way that doesn't make you feel that way.
Right. Well, I think so that I don't have another hot flash, it might be a great time to end this, because it was a very positive show. I really enjoyed this. I think we get too caught up, and we also, the judgmental thing is pretty deep, because we think, you know, we have the right to judge others for some reason.
Yes, we try to make ourselves feel better by judging others to be inferior to us.
Right.
Oh, look at those people. Aren't they stupid? You know, they're not smart like me, is the underlying message there that we take away from it. It's us. That's our ego trying to make us feel better about our own problems and our own, you know, negativity. So yes, the act of judging and the act of belittling other people and seeing what's wrong in the world is mostly an act of a person trying to feel better about themselves. See, again, it's not the world out there. It's what's inside of you is what makes you do that. It's not that you just live in an awful world. That's not that hard to live with. But it's you trying to make yourself feel better, going into all that negative junk, yes, and the judging. The judging isn't because we're judges and we're trying to score people. The judging is because makes us feel better to put other people down, to say negative things about other people. Because what we're really saying is we're better than that. I'm better than they are. I'm smarter than they are. I understand things better than they do. Yeah. Well, good for me. Yeah.
Yes.
And people do that because the fear they have is that they're not good enough, is that they're inadequate, that they don't measure up. And because they have that fear, then their strategy to deal with that fear is to put other people down, because then they can try to convince themselves that they're pretty good, even though they don't really feel pretty good at a deep level. So, yeah, and you can watch, like you say, you watch people being negative and you'll learn a lot. You know, you'll start to see all the dynamics of what's really going on there, that those negative people are really trying to make themselves feel better at the expense of others. Right. And that's what's going on. And then the others that are catching that negativity, they're doing the same thing back. Right. And that's why everybody argues and fusses, but nothing ever changes, because nobody has any space to grow up in. Right. Because of all the negativity. There's no positive space to grow up. There's just more negativity. So that's why it's a good thing to get away from people like that, because find some positive space. Go someplace where you're volunteering, because all the people there volunteering are generally positive people who care. And those are the kind of people that's good to hang out with, and they probably won't be so negative. Yeah. It's important to pick good friends.
It is.
Yeah. We tell our kids that, and we don't realize that it's important for, just as important for us.
Yeah. All right. Well, great show, Tom. You've been listening to News for the Heart. We've been getting to the heart of what matters. We've been looking at growing up with positivity. All right. So we will be back sometime in the fall. I look forward to it, as always. And thanks for listening. Thanks, Tom.
You're welcome. Thank you, Laurie.